top of the morning, and it is a beaut.
And the hope of the Irish as the future champion of the world.
A podcast is kind of like it's like a radio show that's not on the radio.
Welcome to the Barry J. McDonald podcast. The place where dreams get dusted off and acted on. Because life is too short. We're living on a rock that's flying through space, and hey, what the hell else were you going to do with yourself here?
Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to today's podcast episode. Now, the title of this podcast episode today probably intrigued you because, a lot of us are looking for the road to paradise. We're all looking for better health, more money, more success, a greater life, so we're all kind of on this journey to the road to paradise. But I was just listening to the Ed Mylett podcast the other day, and he was interviewing Tim Grover. And Tim Grover was explaining on that episode that the road to paradise starts in hell. Now, I'm sure he had, a thought of what that actually meant, but listen to the podcast. It kind of, gave me a little bit of inspiration because sometimes our starting point in life is sometimes hell, or maybe you're in hell right now, Maybe you might have been born into maybe a poor background, so you've always known poverty. Or maybe your life has changed since then. Maybe you were never born into poverty, but maybe you're going through maybe some life crisis, or maybe a health crisis. And right now, you're going through your own personal hell. It's your own kind of dark point. And sometimes we, when we're in those low places, when we're in our own little hell, it's easy to believe that we are the only one who suffers in this life, or who's going through a rough time. And what I was just, I was writing about this in an email today I was sending out to my list. I just mentioned a couple of people who, had low points in their life and totally transformed their lives from where they were. I'd mentioned about Jim Rohn. Now, I'm sure you probably have heard of Jim Rohn before, but I remember reading one of Jim Rohn's books and him saying that the lowest point in his life was when a little Girl Scout was coming round to his door and she was selling boxes of cookies. Now, I don't know how much the box of cookies would. It could be $5, it could be $10. I'm not too sure. But he looked at that sweet girl and he realised, something, I don't even have this money. I can't even buy this box of cookies off this girl. So what he did was he lied to her. He basically said that he already had bought a box of cookies the day before and that he had enough a stock of cookies in his press and he didn't want any more. And he said that really kind of stuck with him. The fact that he had to lie to a small child because he didn't have money to pay for the cookies. And again, I remember reading about the great Tony Robbins. I remember Tony Robbins in one of his books explained that he was just sitting in his apartment. It was a tiny wee apartment. I think he probably couldn't, swing a cat in it. It was that small. And he said he was just sitting on this chair and he was looking at the dishes in the sink and he just broke down and cried. He just cried and sobbed of where he was. And he swore from that point onwards his life would never be that low again. And even the great Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I remember watching a video on YouTube where he was explaining, his lowest point in his life was when he was playing American football and it didn't take off. He got dropped by the team and I think he had to be picked up by his father. And on the way home, he put his hand in his pocket and all he had was $7. That was all he had to his name, was $7. And because of that, he swore again, like most of those people in those situations, that his life was never going to be the same again. And he actually named his production company 7 Bucks because he always wanted to be reminded of that low point in his life. And he was always going to use that low point as, a motivation, as something to fire him up, to make sure that he would never go back to that point in his life again when he only had $7 to his name. So sometimes, even though hell is painful, sometimes we feel that life is never going to improve, that it's just going to continue on the way it is. Sometimes being in hell can be a blessing for you, because sometimes it could be just a spark you need right now to light the fuse that needs to be lit, to drive you from where you are on to bigger and greater things. You'll find sometimes the people who are the most successful, the people who are millionaires, billionaires or whatever. Sometimes some of those people have come from the worst backgrounds, the lowest points. And again, sometimes people who, do amazing things, in sport, maybe Paralympics or, some kind of maybe disabled sport. Some of those people had dark moments where maybe they lost the power on their legs or maybe lost their sight or had some disability just happen to them, and that was their own personal hell. And that personal hell fired them up to become maybe going to the Olympics or running marathons or doing something that they never did before when when they were able-bodied. They never gave any consideration to pushing their life. And it's only through this dark moment where they lost the ability to maybe use some of their limbs that it kind of fire them up to become more than what they were at that time. And that could be what's happening to you right now. Even though, as I said, it's a painful thing to go through, no one would wish hell on anyone else, but it could be a good starting point for you. It could be the thing that's going to light your fuse. And again, what I'd remind you to, not only yourself but me too, sometimes when we're going through those low moments, hell is just a starting point. It's not a destination. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be in that same position. Now, Tim Grover probably had another idea of what, the road to paradise starting from hell probably meant. Knowing Tim, it was probably something to do with like physical, exerting yourself, pushing yourself through your pain barrier, showing up, doing as much work as you can, hustle. That could be a hell for you as well too, that you might need to maybe push yourself, maybe physically more than you've ever done before, or sometimes maybe mentally push yourself harder than you ever done before. And that could be, hell could be, that point in your life when you're going through those things. But again, pushing yourself through those moments of hell, those moments of pain, is going to lead to the road to paradise. So wherever you are right now, maybe you're not in hell, maybe you're on your way out of it or whatever, but sometimes if you are going through those low moments, you're not the only one. Again, like Dwayne Johnson, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, we've all had our dark moments. We've all had moments when we just maybe hated ourselves, hated our lives, and said, enough is enough. I'm going to make a big difference in it. So if you're aiming through to go on the road to paradise, starting from hell is a good place to start, and you need to start somewhere. So start there. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Before you go, Barry would like to give you a free copy of Words to Wealth. In it, he's going to show you 10 ways to make money from writing. Head on over to writecome.com now for your copy. Have a great day and come back soon.